Hi, I hope you're having a great week, and I hope that you've been using this time in which we're social distancing to improve relations with those in your family, getting in touch with people that you don't get in touch with very often, reconnecting, as it were, at a distance, improve Bible study, improve time of meditation and reflection. There's all kinds of great things that we can do when we are being still and allowing God to be God. I want to encourage you, especially this week, in this lesson that we're going to be looking at together. Please set aside some family time that you can discuss what we're going to be discussing, because I think it's incredibly important. And I think that it really speaks to the times in which we live, the pressures that we're under, the changes that are going on in our culture having to do with our integrity and specifically our honesty. The title of this lesson is In Christ and with You, I Can Let My Yes Be Yes and My No Be No. Obviously, I borrowed that from James in his writings, and I made that the title because I believe that statement is incredibly brilliant in the way it makes a very profound, straightforward statement about how we communicate with one another. Now, along that lines, there's a lot of things going on in our culture, as you well know, and we talk about a lot about how things are not as they seem, as they're presented. A lot of fake news and things like that we've gotten to where we've become very cynical of sources because we don't know who to believe. This integrity in our speech involves a whole lot of things. In so many of those areas we're not going to be able to get into, but I hope they will generate some discussion for you. Not long ago, a doctor who has a television show, who got the television show bringing his expertise as a physician onto a television show in order to ostensibly to help people understand medical issues, things like that. One of the things about him, he's become kind of controversial to some, many in the medical field, because of statements and stands that he's taken, things like that. It's really interesting to watch how he responds to those who disagree with him or lambast him or whatever. And I want to share with you a statement that he made recently that got him a deluge of negative response. Then I want to show you how he responded to the response, because that really gets down to this integrity in our speech kind of thing. Here's what he said, and I quote, "I just saw a nice piece in a medical journal, The Lancet, arguing that the opening of schools may only cost us 2% to 3% in terms of total mortality. You know, any life is a life lost, but to get every child back into school where they're being safely educated, being fed, and making the most out of their lives, with the theoretical risk on the backside, might be a trade-off some folks would consider." Now, he got a lot of negative feedback because, in essence, what he was saying, I read an interesting article that said basically that a 2 to 3% collateral loss would be justified by our kids being safe at school, being fed, advancing their own education, their own goals, etc., that it would be a fair trade-off. Now, as you can imagine, a lot of people responded to that very, very negatively. Now, once he had received this deluge of response, and understanding that his credibility with his audience, being accepted by his audience, is very important to his career, he made this statement: "I've realized my comments on risks around opening schools have confused and upset people, which was never my intention. I misspoke." Now, one of the things that I want you to notice about that is he neither defended nor apologized. He didn't say, "I know it was hard for you to accept," but the truth is, he didn't double down on what he had said, nor did he apologize. He didn't say, "What I said was wrong. What I said I shouldn't have said. What I said was off the top of my head," or whatever. And guys, we've all been guilty of doing that, saying things off the top of our head or whatever. And the way to make up for that is just go back and say, you know what, I said something I didn't mean, and I'm sorry for that. But he didn't give a defense or an apology. He just gave a statement. And that's what you see so often now. It's not an apology, although it's couched to be an apology, and what it is just a statement. Those last words are very interesting because he said, I misspoke. He didn't say, I didn't mean what I said. He didn't, and I think that's very evident from what he said, that he was extolling this article that he had read. The word misspoke means to speak or utter or pronounce incorrectly. Now, he didn't say what I said was incorrect. In fact, what he said was my words caused some people to be upset and confused. You see, it's their problem. They got confused because I didn't make it clear. Now, if you go back and look at his statement, I think it was very clear. He didn't say, I said what I meant to say at the time, but it was wrong. Nor did he say, what I said I meant to say. And some of you are having trouble with it, and I understand that, but I still stand by what I said. It's kind of like the guy when asked, how are you going to vote in the election? He said, well, you know, some of my friends are going to vote Republican. Some of my friends are going to vote Democrat. And as for me, I stand with my friends. So you can make a statement without saying anything, and you can make a statement that appears to say something, especially in the matter of right and wrong, apologizing, taking back what I said, etc. That doesn't say anything, or doesn't say what it's purported to say. There's a term for that, and it's called non-apology. A non-apology is an insincere apology or expression of regret, often blaming the aggrieved party for being offended or bringing up an irrelevant topic to distract. One of the things I want you to notice is so often when you get a public apology for something somebody has tweeted, for something they've said, how they've been quoted or whatever, what you'll hear as a response is not either I meant what I said or, you know, I was wrong. What you hear is what I said upset some people, and for that I'm sorry. I'm sorry you're upset. In essence, I'm sorry that you're upsetable. Did you know that using the word but can completely ruin an apology? Studies show that making it clear that you understand what you did wrong, taking full responsibility for what you did wrong, offering a plan to fix what you did wrong, and promising to make a change are the most effective way to apologize. However, saying that I am sorry that I did this or that, but can sound so defensive that you ultimately end up blaming the other person and appear insincere. I want you to notice how often you're going to hear the word but put in and suppose an apology. People got upset at what I said, and I'm sorry, but when people give a rationale for why they did what they did, they're still defending themselves. And they're saying that the problem is yours. It's like the modern kind of sarcastic, sorry, not sorry. I'm using the word sorry, but I'm not sorry. And in essence, I'm sorry, I'm not sorry. But I'm not sorry that I'm not sorry. I mean, it really is a nonsensical statement that makes fun of the very thing that it purports to suggest. James made the statement, let your yes be yes and your no be no. Now, when he did that, he was talking in the context of not taking an oath, not using anything in addition to your words to try to give credibility to what you're trying to say. A few years ago, there was a cartoon, SpongeBob SquarePants, in which SpongeBob on a dumpster outside of the restaurant where he worked, there was a word, an off-color word that was spray painted on the dumpster, and he didn't know what it meant. And his rather dim-witted friend, Patrick, came along about that time, and he said, Patrick, what does that word mean? Patrick didn't know what the word meant. It was a curse word or a swear word, some kind of profanity. was never shown. They just alluded to it. And Patrick said, oh, maybe that's one of those sentence enhancers. You know, a word that you use to make what you say sound fancy. And the rest of the cartoon was the humor of, they thought they were talking fancy, but what they were doing was accidentally using profanity. Now the profanity was bleeped out by the sound of a porpoise. And it really is kind of a neat study of the nature of profanity and words that should and shouldn't be used. But I want to take that concept of a sentence enhancer, and that's what an oath can be. It's things that we add to what we say in order to give credibility, not realizing that if we have to appeal to anything in order to give us credibility, we have a credibility problem. In other words, if I have to swear on my mother's grave, then I've got a credibility problem. Because first of all, we're not at my mother's grave. And what does my mother's grave have to do with anything? I'm trying to give credibility because I doubt myself and I believe that you doubt me. That's why James says, let your yes be yes. If the answer is yes, say yes. If the answer is no, say no. Don't pull God into this. Don't pull swearing into this. Don't pull anything else into this. This is a matter of integrity. James could have said, when you speak, say what you mean. He could have said, when you speak, mean what you say. He could have said, don't be ambiguous or purposefully unclear. Develop a reputation in which your simple answer ends the query. Now, what I mean by that is, imagine that you're being interviewed by a reporter and they ask you a question and you give a very clear, concise, specific answer. Any follow-up question to that would be an attempt to either reject what you've said or confound it. And that would be, so are you saying that so-and-so, so-and-so? No, it's not what I said. Okay? If we speak clearly and straightforwardly, if you let your yes be yes and your no be no, then what you're demonstrating is that you're a person of integrity. And as James tells us, anybody who can control the tongue controls the person. If you will, what demonstrates our integrity is how we handle truth and how we handle falsehood as well as everything else. But those things become the real test because deception is so easy and it's so socially accepted. Guys, there's all kinds of attacks on truth right now in our culture. There's cultural relativism, the idea of subjective truth, the idea that very little, if anything, is objectively true. Situational truth, it's true for you, it's not true for me. There's political correctness. There's fake news. There's definition deconstruction of redefining or undefining what marriage means, undefining what gender means. Because nobody has come up with a better definition, we just deconstruct them. And ultimately, I think all of these are associated with a societal rejection of a relationship with God. So truth is being attacked on so many different levels to the point that our culture is saying, in the words of Pilate, truth, what is truth? In Titus chapter 1, Paul talked about a culture that had developed a cultural perspective of being liars. Titus chapter 1, verse 10. For there are many rebellious men, empty talkers and deceivers. Notice that, empty talkers and deceivers, especially those of the circumcision. Now, we're talking about religious people who are being empty talkers and deceivers. It's a rampant issue. Who must be silenced because they're upsetting whole families, teaching things that they should not teach for the sake of sordid gain. One of themselves, a prophet of their own, said, Cretans are always liars, evil beasts, lazy gluttons. This testimony is true. For this cause, reprove them severely, that they may be sound in the faith, not paying attention to Jewish myths, etc., etc. The Cretans had developed a reputation as being liars, lazy gluttons. evil beast. In other words, everybody who wasn't from Crete knew that the people of Crete were this way. Nations can develop reputations. One of the things that we learned in Desert Storm was there are many Arab nations who made boasts that they couldn't back up. And because they made boasts, we got intimidated, not realizing that boasts that you can't back up tends to be the coin of the realm in that culture. Now, he talked about there are people who do it for sordid gain. As we're going to look at in a moment, there are people who also do it to try to prevent consequences. What I'm suggesting from this passage is, I believe in the United States, we are developing the culture of Cretans. I think we are developing a culture of lies. And I think there comes a tipping point where folks begin to assume what you're saying is a lie. I think we've reached that in advertising. I think we've reached that in politics. I think we've reached that in the corporate shield, that I can't trust what you're telling me, that lying is as much the coin of the realm as business is. In many ways, we are becoming like Cretans, and that becomes our reputation even among one another. The use of deceit demonstrates a lack of trust. It's a lack of faith in God. It's a lack of faith in others. I can't trust you with the truth. I can't tell you what I really believe. Can't tell you what I really think. Can't tell you what I really feel because I don't trust you with my feelings. I don't trust you to respond in love to me and caring and compassion. In fact, I trust that you'll reject me if I tell you that. It's a lack of faith in God because we lie to get ourselves out of consequences, and God is there to do just that. It's a lack of faith in ourselves. We don't have the self-esteem to tell the truth and to bear the consequences. It takes great self-esteem. Please remember, Jesus died for the truth. He died because of the truth. He had to feel strongly enough about himself to say the truth, even though he knew that constantly people were plotting to get rid of him. Abraham lied about Sarah being his wife. Genesis chapter 20. Now, Abraham journeyed from there toward the land of the Negev, settled between Kadesh and Shur. Then he sojourned in Gerar. Abraham said to Sarah, his wife, she is my sister. Said of Sarah's wife, she is my sister. So Abimelech, king of Gerar, sent and took Sarah. But God came to Abimelech in a dream in the night and said to him, behold, you're a dead man because of the woman you have taken, for she is married. Now, Abimelech had not come near her. And he said, Lord, wilt thou slay a nation, even though blameless? Did he not himself say to me, she is my sister? And she herself said, he is my brother. In the integrity of my heart and the innocence of my hands, I have done this. And God said to him in a dream, yes, I know that in the integrity of your heart you have done this, and also kept you from sinning against me. Therefore I did not let you touch her. Now therefore restore the man's wife, for he is a prophet. He will pray for you and you will live. But if you do not restore her, know that you shall surely die, you and all of yours. Okay. Abraham, to get into telling the truth is going to get him into trouble, and sometimes the truth does that. Abimelech's interested in Sarah. Abraham knows that. And so when they go in there, he says, now, we're going to tell him that you're my sister instead of my wife. So play along. Apparently she does, because she calls him brother, he calls her sister, etc. Trying to get out of consequences. Now, guys, please, I understand that there are consequences to telling the truth, but it demonstrates a lack of faith in God to be able to deal with our situation that we get into because we tell the truth. And what Abraham demonstrated was just the same kind of lack of faith that we have. I see that I can get in trouble if I say this, therefore I'm not going to say that. If you understand, and God called Abraham a prophet to Abimelech, if prophets do not say what is true because of fear of the trouble they could get into, we wouldn't have the majority of the Old Testament. Wouldn't have the minor prophets. As James said to the ruling council, which of the prophets did your forefathers not kill? And I know that can be frightening sometimes, and I know it can be intimidating at times. But guys, that's part and parcel of why it's important that we trust in God. That if we tell the truth, that He is either going to rescue us, or in His pride in us, He's going to allow nature to take its course and, say in the case of Stephen, be stoned. Part of learning to deal with the truth and part of becoming a person of integrity, and that means not playing games with truth, is first accepting the reality that it's going to cost me. And I think sometimes that's a commitment we don't make. I know it's going to cost me to be truthful. I know it may cost me some quote unquote friends. Now I would question if they're friends, if it can't be a relationship based on truth. In fact, without truth, there can't be trust. Without trust, there really can't be a relationship. So folks that we call friends may leave us because we tell them the truth. This happened with Jesus quite a bit. And ultimately, He died for the truth, as did almost all of the original 12 apostles, as did the prophets, etc. One of the first things we have to acknowledge and become okay with is that telling the truth is going to cost me. Now, ultimately, it's not going to cost me anything that I don't need or can't live without, but it's going to cost me. And that's one of the reasons that we get into deception. And that's one of the reasons that we can confound what we say rather than just letting my yes be yes and my no be no. Now, understand the difference between truth and opinion, but please understand that opinions are true for me. Steve, does this situation make you feel uncomfortable? Yes, it does. That's telling the truth. Steve, does this situation make you feel uncomfortable? No, it doesn't. That's telling the truth if either one of those really represents what I'm feeling. But here's the thing. When someone asks, Steve, does this situation make you feel uncomfortable? Our human tendency is, now what's going to be the reaction if I give a truthful answer? How's that going to impact this person? On and on and on and on and on. So, understand that we avoid truth, as Paul wrote, for sordid gain, and that's where our cultures come. I will tell anybody what they need to know, what they need to hear from me in order to be elected. I will tell people whatever I need to say in order to sell product, on and on and on. And brothers and sisters, we may be the ones, God-fearing people may be the ones that prevent this nation from becoming Crete, of having the reputation of being liars. But the first step to becoming a liar is to make truth subjective. Because if there's no truth, there can be no lie. So I can say anything and there's no consequences for it. Remember, again, Jesus died for the truth. The prophets died for the truth. If you can be trusted in the tough stuff, you can be trusted in everything. If you bail in the tough stuff, you can't be totally trusted or respected. And it casts a shadow not only on what you say, but it casts a shadow on your testimony. In other words, if you lie to me about something that's tough for you to say, and I find out that you're lying about it, now I don't know when you're telling me the truth. I can't totally trust you. Your integrity has been impaired. And now if you're going to tell me what God wants me to do, if you're going to tell me what I need to do to be saved, your integrity becomes an issue. Just like when we watch TV preachers and stuff like that, their integrity is an issue with us, isn't it? Now they purport to be people of God, but they have an integrity problem from our perspective because of the way that they deal with truth. Ultimately, it casts a shadow on your testimony, your statements about God and salvation and the gospel and all of that. And that's why this truth issue is so very important to God. He doesn't say things to be misunderstood. He doesn't say things to be unclear. And that's in your guide. And I want you to spend some time talking about the difference between, say, a parable and being just straightforward frank. The purpose of the parable was not to confuse things. It was not to make them oblique. It was to make them clear. But again, if you tell the truth, if you make a commitment to the truth, you're going to suffer. Amos chapter 5, verse 10. They hate him who reproves in the gate, and they abhor him who speaks with integrity. That's a great statement about our culture. You will be abhorred by so many folks as our nation becomes more and more like Crete. You're going to be abhorred by more and more people when you demonstrate the integrity with your honesty. Galatians 4, a very famous passage, Paul saying, have I therefore become your enemy by telling you the truth? He told them at the beginning of this book, oh, foolish Galatians. He made it very clear, I'm going to tell you the truth. Now here's a question, are you going to turn on me because I did? He's not apologizing, and he's not taking it back. What he's asking them to do is reflect. If you get upset because I'm telling you the truth, what does that tell you about you? Guys, it used to be politics was a part of our lives. Our jobs, our education were all parts of our lives, and then there was kind of our lifestyle. And in that was the morality of our religious upbringing and things like that. As the religion and the morality with that has taken the back seat, there's been a greater rise of politics being the basis of morality. And so what that gave rise to was political correctness, which means being correct really to all different sides. It's being correct to anybody that's listening to me. It's what used to be called two-faced. So let's talk about honesty and sentence enhancers. If you say, give me your honest opinion, what are you implying? That your other opinions wouldn't be honest? If you say, be honest with me, or do you honestly believe that I would? See, I am saying you're not being honest. Honestly, I never thought that she would. Honestly, you never thought? Why didn't you just say, I never thought she would do that? Well, to be honest with you, to be totally honest with you, and that one's really interesting because it puts a qualifier on honest. It puts a degree on honesty. To be totally honest, which means I could be less honest, I could be medium honest, all of those. This is all such a mess that destroys integrity. But these are words that we say, and sometimes we don't even think about it. It's an unconscious acknowledgement of being deceptive when we say, give me your honest opinion. Or, can I be honest with you? It's an unconscious acknowledgement, and that ought to upset us. It's like saying, allow me to be frank. The word frank means open, honest, and direct in speech and writing, especially when dealing with unpalatable matters. Now, what I just shared with you is a definition out of a dictionary. It's interesting, and I found it very interesting that it used the term unpalatable. Unpalatable means something that tastes good or doesn't taste good. So to be frank means to be open, honest, and direct in speech and writing, especially when dealing with something that doesn't taste good. It doesn't hear well. I don't like the sound of it. Things like that. We call that frank. And I'm afraid that the word frank has become to mean, let me be rude. Let me be mean. Let me be hurtful. When really what it is open and honest and direct. Guys, open and honest and direct is what let your yes be yes and your no be no means. Be open, honest, and direct. Don't build gray areas. Don't build confusion. Say what you mean and mean what you say. Truth is very important. You shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. Truth brings us to freedom. Therefore, anything that is not truth, and truth doesn't come in degrees, anything that's not truth leads to slavery. Truth's the only way to know God. It's the only way to know salvation. It's the only way to avoid Satan, because he's the father of lies or untruth. He's the father of political correctness. He's the father of, oh, let's protect their feelings. Truth is important because lies are deceit. But deceit is so much more than just lies. Deceit is the intent, conscious or unconscious, to lead someone to a wrong conclusion. So a fake apology, a non-apology, is deceitful. It sounds like I'm apologizing, and I want my words to sound like I'm apologizing, but I'm not, nor am I defending. Is there a truth continuum? I think some people perceive one, that on one end there's dishonest, then there's doubtful, partially truthful, pretty honest, very truthful. Did you hear that last one? Very truthful. I want you to understand that truth does not need a qualifier. Something cannot be very truthful. There are things that are relative. You can get more and more and more. But there are things that I'm not very American. I'm American. I'm not very Steve. I'm Steve. There are not other degrees of Steve. This is it. It's very unnecessary and it's confusing, because truth is like a light switch. It's either on or it's off. It's not a dimmer switch. There are no degrees of truth. Truth is superlative. You cannot give it degrees. And it's very important we understand that, because we tend to do just that. We tend to give it degrees. We have white lies. I didn't lie. It's just like saying I didn't break the law, I just bent it. All right, that doesn't work. There's a notion in our culture right now that's called virtual signaling. It started as a pithy way of calling out people who parade their convictions just to look good. I don't know about you, and this may sound a little cynical to you, but I'm getting so frustrated with advertisers jumping onto the coronavirus bandwagon of virtue signaling. You are the most important thing to us. Oh, really? What's my birthday? Understand something. I understand my relationship with GM. I understand my relationship with the satellite company. They provide a service. I pay for it. Now, do I care about them? Well, as human beings, yes. Do I care about them? No. Am I involved in their lives? No. Do I share anything with them? No. Do I care? Do I drop by and give them a cake? No. So to say you are the most important thing to us is virtue signaling. See, it makes us feel good. And that sells product. But I wish they would be honest. I wish that rather than saying, all right, those of us here at Al's Parts Department, Al's Auto Parts Store, are here to serve you in these tough times. I wish they would say, hey, this is Al's Auto Parts. Just want you to know that we're still open. If you need auto parts, we're here and we'll sell them to you. And we just don't want you to forget us or think that we're not open because of the coronavirus. I wish they would let their yes be yes and their no be no. And not this fake caring. Because the truth is they can't. They can't care about 1 million customers. They can care about 1 million transactions. And that's part of this virtue signaling. Virtue signaling is presenting yourself as caring about something when you really don't. It's the folks that got on board with the bucket challenge, although they didn't submit any money. for ALS. So they go on Facebook and they dump water on themselves or whatever, which is about me. It's about my show and my presentation. And they want you to think that they're getting on the bandwagon, that they care, etc. That's called virtue signaling. Opinionated social media posts, changing profile pictures to include an avatar of a cause. These are all said to be examples of virtue signaling. And it's appearing to be virtuous without actually being virtuous. It's fake caring. It's what I call Corona advertising. I understand there are folks in the advertising business who study psychology to understand what sells, and they will present whatever it takes to present to make a sale. I don't blame them for that. That's what, and if it works, we're the gullible ones. But if advertisers would follow what James said, let your yes be yes, your no be no. Just tell us what it is that you're trying to do. Tell us what it is that you want to achieve. Be fair with us. But don't present virtue to me that you don't really mean. Let your yes be yes. Psalm 15, verse 1, O Lord, who may abide in thy tent, who may dwell on thy holy hill, he who walks with integrity and works righteousness and speaks truth in his heart, does not slander with his tongue, does not do evil to his neighbor. Proverbs 2, verse 7, he stores up sound wisdom for the upright. He is the shield of those who walk in integrity, guarding the paths of justice, and he preserves the way of the godly ones. Now, in your lesson, and like I say, there's so many things to talk about. We don't have time in this lesson, and you won't have time in yours. But there's one thing I'm going to ask you to focus on, and that's how we deceive one another. That's how we, quote unquote, soften the truth in order to protect people's feelings. Now, in your study guide, there's a description of that. And there's all kinds of problems with that notion of, first, the false dichotomy. I'm either going to hurt your feelings or I'm going to tell you the truth. The underlying idea is you respect your feelings more than you do the truth. I think I've shared with you before, and it's a lesson that I will always appreciate my father for teaching me. One day I came home from school and I was in a very bad way because someone had said something to me that really hurt. And my dad could tell I was moping, he could tell I was down, and he said, Steve, what's going on? I told him what this fella said about me. And my dad said, first question you have to ask yourself is it true? And as I'm listening to my dad, it occurs to me that's why it hurt me, because it was true. He said, Steve, if it's not true, then it doesn't hang on you. Remember, they said false things about Jesus. People could say whatever they want to say. Why are you so upset? But if it is true, I want you to understand this person who you think is your enemy is your best friend, because they pointed out something about you that needs to change, something about you that you need to improve. And he was exactly right. The person who tells me the truth, i.e. the prophet, i.e. Jesus, is my best friend. And sometimes what they have to say pierces me to the core. Sometimes what they have to say causes me to end up on the front pew at church. But our culture, our politically correct culture, has taught us not to tell the truth in order to protect people's feelings. That feelings are more important than the truth. That true feelings cannot accept true truth. And that's a dichotomy that's artificial. It's wrong. And one of the things that I'm going to encourage you to discuss is when you make a relationship in which you in some way affirm, hey, let's be friends or let's hang out or whatever, one of the discussions you need to have is you can always depend on me to tell you the truth. Don't ask me a question if you don't want to hear the truth. And if you do ask me a question, I'm going to tell you the truth. I'm going to tell you the truth of facts, or I'm going to tell you the truth of how I feel, because I respect you and I respect myself. Okay? So you can always depend on what I tell you. Now, in your existing relationships, I would encourage you to go back and reestablish that kind of a relationship. Because when folks withhold the truth from us to protect our feelings, we feel better, but intuitively we trust less. Because I sense that you don't believe that. I sense that you don't feel that. And so when you tell me, in order to protect me, I get my feelings protected at the cost of your integrity. I think a relationship can get over hurt feelings better than it can get over distrust and the loss of integrity. Don't apologize if someone's feelings get hurt. Let them understand and share with them, I love you. Nothing's changed between us. I'm not going to abandon you. I love you. That's why I told you what I told you. Because David's best friend on the face of this earth was Nathan. When he told him, you're the man. You're the one that did that. Knowing full well David could have had him killed. He's already killed Uriah. Why not kill the prophet? But David had enough integrity to know, this guy's telling me the truth. This guy is totally loyal to me and to God. Did it hurt him? Absolutely. Did he get over the hurt? Absolutely. Did he lose trust in Nathan? Absolutely not. Brothers and sisters, I want you to have some discussion about integrity in speech. I want you to start out by talking about, what did James mean by let your yes be yes? Let your no be no. Isn't yes already yes? Do I have to let it be yes for it to be yes? Does it not mean no? Do I have to let it be no in order for it to be no? Isn't it no? What did he mean? And then the next thing is, I want you to focus on, how has our culture influenced us to be deceptive with high moral justification, supposedly. And that's protecting other people from the truth. What kind of relationship protects people from the truth? Not one that's built on trust and integrity. God bless you. I love you. Can't wait till we get back together face to face, even if it is behind a mask and 6 feet away. Can't wait to look into your eyes. God bless you. Have a great rest of the week. See ya.